everyone, it's great to see you. And I can see some familiar faces, so hi to the little people. So I'm going to talk to you a bit about my research. And really that's about why kids' cartoons are so weird and what that might mean for their attention and learning. So I'm particularly interested in how different aspects of the content may influence attention control, particularly during a key period of development, so the second year of life up through to round about school starting age. And so I thought it would be fun, and hopefully the kids will enjoy watching some clips. Sorry, my cat's just decided to join the Skype, so I'm just going to move him. Okay, so I have some clips here, which is CBB's top picks from last week. And the reason why I picked these clips was because I think they really illustrate the differences in content that children now can view. So let me share my screen and hopefully this works. I've been practicing this morning, but every time I practice, there's some technical issue. So hopefully you can see my screen. So I thought that these clips were really good because it clearly shows the differences that kids can watch. So we have really uber naturalistic content, but also animated content. And so we're likely to see lots of differences for children in terms of what they're able to comprehend from these different types of shows. So I guess the question is, what do we know already about what children understand from screen-based content? And so we know that there's huge variation across development. So very young children, around 6 months of age, visual acuity is still developing. And then for all children under 3, they lack the skills needed to be able to transfer what they see on the screen into the real world. And so content creators really have to intuit these differences in order to create content that's engaging and entertaining for children. But then there's a question about what that means for their attention and learning. So today I'm going to talk a bit about really some pivotal studies for my work that came out recently in the past sort of 5 years or so, which show content-based differences in how children's executive function works immediately after video viewing. And so what's really important about this study really is that they use quite a broad range of kids shows, and they were able to tease apart factors that may influence how children can then perform on a set of very standardized tests immediately after viewing. And one of the suggestions from this study is that in children's shows, there are things which are fantastical by nature, which occur often. So these events are violations of physical laws, so what children will expect. So things appear and then disappear and then reappear, or a character's body form is suddenly altered, or they morph. And these things are actually very difficult for children to process. And so one explanation of the differences they found is really that the differences may be attributed to the inclusion of these events. So what I wanted to do was, I'll share my screen again. I wanted to just show you 2 examples which are taken from these studies. So in the first one, you'll see that the clip is supernaturalistic, but it's trying to convey quite an abstract idea. So dad is going to be playing a trick on mum. It's April Fool's Day. And then in the second clip, it's also introducing a very abstract idea. Nouns are disappearing from books and children must find these nouns. But they convey this in a fantastical way. So we see appearances and disappearances of things. So I'll just play this. Hope you can see.
One morning at breakfast, Daddy did something funny.
Daddy, what are you doing?
I'm playing a little joke on Mommy.
You mean the words were taken out?
Sí, removidas. Removed, leaving nothing but a blank space. This is the adventures of Tom Sawyer.
Port, now, man! The wheel! Steady!
In chapter 13, the word rat has been removed.
So the question for us in the lab is really, is it the case that these events are too challenging for the developing brain to process? And this is what we're really now trying to answer with our lab study. So we're running a study we started in January with 18-month-old children. And we're really hoping to understand what kind of impact these types of events have on children's attention control. So in order to do this, we use an eye tracker, and then we have specially edited Looney Tunes clips. And these clips contain fantastical events or don't contain fantastical events. And we're interested in the difference in attention based on the type of clip that children are seeing. And we essentially monitor children's attention in a number of ways during the lab session. So we monitor it whilst they're actually viewing the cartoon, so in real time. So that's a clip I'm going to show you first of all. And this really allows us to look at what it is in the content that's driving children's attention and how much control children have over their own attention while they're seeing different types of footage. So if I share my screen, so this is taken from the lab. This is really preliminary stuff, but here you'll be able to see the gaze of the child. So here the dots represent the gaze of the child watching, and they're picking out the character as they're entering the scene and following the character, and we move into the next frame, and then they are picking out the aspects of the scene which maybe hold some meaning for them. And what we're going to be able to do with a clip like that ultimately is look at what in that clip predicts where children are going to be looking. And then at the same time as doing this, we're also running a number of tasks in the lab that allow us to look at how children deploy their attention across contexts. So we have some screen-based contexts and also some play tasks as well. So I'm going to show you one of our screen tasks, and this is called the anti-saccade task. So I think you should be able to, let me just reshare. And the purpose of this task is essentially to teach the children to look towards a certain location where they're going to receive a reward. And in order to do so, they're going to have to inhibit a distractor that's flashing on the opposite side of the screen. And this is a really important task for us because it allows us to differentiate between two types of attention. So attention that's being driven by the content on the screen itself, and then attention that's being driven by the child. And this is, we hope, going to show us some differences between the different types of clips that we have, but also as the viewing progresses. So we use this task 4 times during the study, interweaving it between different rounds of cartoon clips. So I'll just press play, and what you should be able to see is, as it carries on, the gaze is learning to ignore this black flashing dot that you can see on one side of the screen and arrive at the animal on the other side of the screen. So here now they're no longer looking towards the black dot, so they've learned to inhibit that response and they're getting to the reward side quicker. So that's really just like snapshots of what we're trying to do in the lab and how we're trying to work out if it really is the case that different types of content are going to have an effect on how children deploy their attention. So another aspect of this, just really briefly, is we're now working on an online study, like Tamsin mentioned. So this for us is like a pilot of a task we are working on, which ultimately is going to be placed within a children's app. And that will allow us to address these questions, but during naturally occurring app use. So we're really excited about this. And we need children aged between 1 and 6 to take part. And so I'm going to flash up at the end, I'll flash up the website details, but it's also on our CBCD online study page, and we'll put it up on social media as well. So if you have any kids you think would enjoy taking part, it's going to be up there and good to go. And then the last thing I was going to do with you was just an activity. So this is a bit old school, but I have this task. It's called a movie perception task. And it really just, I think, illustrates the power of the way movies and TV is constructed and how it can sort of deceive us while we're viewing it and make it so as we don't notice certain things. So you're going to see a clip twice, and the first time just basically you want to watch it and see whether you notice anything unusual in the clip, and then you're going to see it again. So let me just share my screen once more. Okay, hopefully you can see this.
Hi, Sabina. Hi. It's been a long time since I've seen you. Yeah, it's great to see you, Andrea. So how did you get here? I took the subway from Middleton, and it took only about half an hour. Really? I drove from Gresham, and it took 45 minutes. Hooray for public transportation. So why did you call me here for this mysterious meeting? I'm planning a surprise party for Jerome, and I need your help to keep him away from the house. That's great. I'll do anything you need. Good. I hate surprise parties, but only when I'm the victim. Otherwise, they're great. Very good.
You just watched had 9 intentional editing mistakes. Did you spot any of them? Watch it again. Notice that the woman on the right, Sabrina, is wearing a scarf. In a moment, we'll have a close-up and the scarf will be gone. Notice the scarf is gone, and Andrea, the woman on the left, has her arm on the table. Now it's at her chin. Scarf is back. Notice that the plates are red. Now they're white, and Andrea's arm is back on the table. Now they're red, and Sabrina's arm is off of the table. Notice that the food is in front of Sabrina. Now it's in front of Andrea. The cups and the spoon have also switched places, and Sabrina's arm is on the table when it wasn't before.
Okay, let me stop sharing my screen. So that's it from me. Hopefully you spotted some of those weird things and the retro clip. I don't know if anybody has any questions. Yeah.
No one? I'll ask a question, Claire.
Yes,
So,
Tamsin.
do you think it matters, like those breaks with reality? I mean, is it stopping us from learning? Because obviously we all watched that clip, and I know that the first one you sent it yesterday and I watched through it, I didn't notice anything until I watched the second bit, which maybe is a testament to how aware I am. But why does that matter?
So I guess it's really, that clip I think really demonstrates how powerful the edits themselves are. And so from our point of view in the research that we're interested in, we're really interested in how much of an impact that is going to have on children. So for us as adult viewers, we piece together a lot. So one of the reasons why we probably don't notice those deliberate mistakes is that our brain is essentially piecing all of these things together, and it's correcting things for us without really us realizing that that's what it's doing. And also it's the case that it's probably that the edits, whilst we think we barely notice them, that they are actually really pronounced and are making it very difficult to make the link across. So like, we've not managed to remember that the woman that we've seen is wearing a scarf and then she's not wearing a scarf. And for us in the lab with children, this is really interesting to us, the power of those edits. So one of the things that we're starting to look at now, and is a possibility with the fantastical events, is the role of discontinuous action or discontinuous time and space. So these things that happen all the time with edits, because it's trying to drive a narrative forward very quickly. But what does that mean for the brain in terms of trying to piece all of that together? And that's probably where children's like any impact on attention or learning is likely to feed in.
Right. Interesting. Anyone else? I'm thinking no.
I can ask a question.
Oh, good.
It's a very tricky question for a scientist, but in these times that you know that most parents need entertainment indoors, how do you think that parents can, like, which details they can look at when searching for sources of entertainment online for their children? Which details do you think they should look at in order to choose the best content for their children? Would you have any tips on your experience as well as a parent and also as a scientist on this topic?
Yeah, so I guess it's a really good question. I think the thing that's becoming increasingly clear to me whilst researching this, but also having a small person, is it's really about being guided by your intuition about what your child is likely to be able to understand. So what we're looking at in the lab is the places where children may struggle to understand content. So I think that your feeling about whether something is age appropriate or not is really important. It may be the case that some types of like supernaturalistic maybe is easier for children to understand than these more abstract pieces of work. But I think it's more about whether it seems age appropriate or developmentally appropriate for your child. And if you think that that's going to be in line with where your child is at, then I think probably you're unlikely to find effects of things there. But with the case of the studies that we're looking at in the lab, one possibility is some of the clips that we used were just pitched for children much older than the children that were viewing them in the study. And so you really have to think about these, like how much, I think, what is the complexity of the piece, and is the complexity of the show in line with where you think your little person's at, or is it stretching them? And if it's stretching them, is it too much for them to follow?
Can I ask something else?
Yeah.
Do you think that in that time, is it or is not a good measure of how much they are understanding or how appropriate it is, the fact that they are attending to the content, the fact that they are being grabbed or getting, getting calmer or quiet when the content is presented? Is that a measure of how much they are? You think that's a measure of how much they are understanding of that content?
So I think this is a bit tricky because I think that it could go either way. So there is evidence that suggests that, so there's obviously sort of an old-fashioned view, let's say, that children sort of become these zombies when they're watching TV, and then what's happening to them because they're just sort of spacing out and staring. And there's sort of two opposing views. And one is that they're basically not actively engaged with the content, they're just allowing what's on the screen to sort of guide and hold their attention, versus actually they might be more actively engaged than it appears. And so I think that it's going to be very hard to know whether it's the case. If a child, it seems very calm and focused watching it, whether it's because it genuinely is holding their attention and they're actively working on it, or whether it's what's in the content that's allowing their attention to be driven. I think more and more as time goes on, there's better child-centric content being created. And so I've used CBeebies because it's really the sort of gold standard in terms of like appropriate content. So, and I think that that's a major factor. So more and more, I think content creators are tailoring shows to children and understanding the limitations that children have in terms of understanding. And so when they are focused on it, likely that is because they're getting something from it.
Great, thanks.
Brilliant. Well, Claire, does anyone else have another question? No. In that case, I think we'll wrap it up for the day. Claire, thank you so much for that. That was truly interesting. And as I said, extremely topical at the moment, always, but particularly now. And Claire's study is up on our website. So if you go to CBCD, there's an online studies page. I was going to try to send round a chat to everybody. Oh, brilliant. So
if I do this, so you can take a photo. Can you see that?
Perfect. I cunningly disabled chat just in case we got Zoom bombed, so I can't do that, I'm afraid. But it is on the link to her study is also on our website, and or go for it there. It's really fun to do. It's just something different for your kid to get involved in. And also we do have one other study online study running right now by our PhD student, Ellie Braithwaite. This one is targeted at infants, so it's for 0 to 12-month-olds. And again, the details for that are on our website. Thank you everyone so much for being here today. We will be back in 2 weeks' time. I'm not quite sure who the speaker is, but please check our website and I'll put up the details as soon as we've got them. Thanks, everyone. Thank you so much, and enjoy the sunshine.
Thank you.
Bye.
Everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.